following program may not be suitable for all audiences and has been rated C for creepy and chilling. The views and opinions of the Darkest Hour's hosts and creators do not necessarily reflect those of Neo-Retro FM or its affiliates. Neo-Retro FM does not assume responsibility for the Darkest Hour's content or its residual effects on listeners, including nightmares, disturbed rest or unsettling images planted in your head. The time to change the station or leave has now come and gone. And now, we present The Darkest Tower with your host Amanda Jane, here on Neo-Retro FM.
For self for tomorrow, we embark on the darkest hour.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to The Darkest Hour. I'm your host, Amanda Jane. Now, the 4th of July may not be the first holiday to come to mind when you think scary. But even a day of festivities, fireworks, and fun can house a few nightmares of its own. And boy, have I got a few for you. I had a strange experience as a child in a new home that only in the last few weeks has my mom agreed to really talk about. For all my life up until I was in the 3rd grade, my mom had been working on a farm in the East Foothills of San Jose. On the farm, they raised goats, horses, and other animals, but their main business was with chickens and honeybees. They sold all their goods locally, with their stand being one of the most popular stands at the farmers market every year. The couple who owned the farm had been mentoring my mom since she was about 18, and now, almost 30, she was ready to have her own farm, take her skills, and create something more. Her dream being more that of owning a plot of land, raising the animals, and having a little shop that sold handmade goods year-round. This dream would take us to Las Gatas, California, where she would eventually go on to open her own little shop in the town. She made soaps, honey, lip balms, candles, you name it. Goat's milk, beeswax, they're truly versatile things of nature. Anyways, my mom had been looking at properties in that area for some time. She finally saw the perfect spot. It was a farm-style home with a storage shed that was built to look like a miniature replica of the house itself. Directly outside, in the surrounding of the house, was very well kept. Nice gardens and fences that were already installed for the animals. The rest was essentially a few large trees and about 6 acres worth of overgrown fields. Or as my mom would put it, lots of potential. The owners weren't living in the house currently and were actually eager to sell the property to somebody who was going to put it to good use. Though the previous owners never actually lived in the house, they did do some work, refurnishing the basement, putting in an alarm system. They weren't on the property often and likely wanted to be alerted should something happen. You could see that they had attempted to refurnish other rooms, but had never gotten around to it before deciding to sell. Most of the house was untouched and left to its original form, which my mom didn't mind one bit. If anything, she liked the charm that it offered. My room was basically the attic. It wasn't closed off from the entire house. Instead, it looked a little bit like a loft of the 3rd floor, with an exposed staircase leading to my bed and all of my other things. My mom didn't really argue with me about the space. Instead, she insisted that I use it for whatever I wanted, so long as I was careful as I did so. The loft, or my room, had 2 very cool circular windows with patches of foggy glass and clear glass. One of the windows faced the front yard, where we had a lemon tree, and the other, closest to my bed, faced the farm, where we currently had chickens, goats, and honeybees. Now, the event I was initially referring to took place about 6 months after we'd already been living in the house. I was sleeping in my room, and I remember being woken up by a high-pitched sound. A sound that was so loud, yet so quiet. I guess deafening is the best way to describe how it felt. When I opened my eyes, I could see that my entire room, the entire house, was filled with this extremely bright blue light. It was so bright that I couldn't even see beyond it, beyond me, like someone shining a flashlight right into your eyes, or the feeling that you get when you stare directly into the sun. I just sort of found myself rolling out of bed and onto the floor. The sound. It was so loud that when I went to yell for my mom, I heard nothing come out of my mouth. I kept telling myself to wake up, like maybe I was in some sort of dream. I remember feeling so weighed down, like when you're on one of those spinny rides and it's almost impossible to move away from the wall, the force of the spin just keeping you pinned there. But I wasn't spinning. I was just laying there, looking up and out the back circular window, engulfed in this blue light and terrible sound of nothingness that was so loud. Then, I remember feeling like someone was picking me up, and I was terrified. Until I realized that this was my mom picking me up, cradling me to her chest, and running down the stairs toward the basement. I could hear things falling as though the house was shaking, and as we made it to the basement staircase, I looked behind my mom, and I could see what looked like 2, maybe 3 huge, skinny shadows surrounding the large windows in the front room. The blue light still filling our home and the space behind the shadows outside. The sound continued, and I could only hear my mom as she got really close and said, "Close your eyes. It's okay. Just close your eyes." I could feel her shaking, or maybe it was me shaking, but either way, I could tell we were both scared. At the time, I guess she was just doing her best to be the adult or the parent in this moment. Everything seemed more manageable when we got to the basement, but still, the bright blue light, even filling this room with just a small stained glass window barely above the ground. The sound still there, but more muted. I don't remember falling asleep, but I found myself being awoken by my mom. I was now laying my head on her lap as she sat on the basement couch. She said, "Let's go upstairs. The storm's over now." Being a kid, I didn't really question this and sort of forgot why we were downstairs to begin with. The next day, the animals were very stressed, as my mom put it. Some of the chickens didn't make it, and she lost her hive. The next few weeks, I remember asking a lot of questions about what kind of storm this was. I'd experienced earthquakes before, but this was so different. But my mom refused to talk about it beyond those first few days that followed. She had a lot of different people coming to the house, installing heavy-duty fencing, creating storm-proof shelters for the animals and future hives. Life was totally normal after that one experience. We kept the house, my mom expanded the farm, and actually still lives there to this day. As an adult, and growing up in general, I decided without my mom's input that this experience was some sort of extraterrestrial encounter. I know it wasn't a storm, but I also understand seeing something that you don't even know you believe in, or if you believe in, and then trying to explain that to your child. So I've shared my experience with my fiance, who, like me, believes it was something extraterrestrial. 2 weeks ago, we were at my mom's, the farm, and while we were outside playing cribbage, I got my mom to talk about that night on the farm. She said that she was awoken by a sound and a bright blue light that flooded her room. As soon as she realized that she wasn't dreaming, she got up and started to run towards my room. She too felt weighed down, and like she couldn't hear anything. She said that she called out to me over and over as she tried to make her way to me. And as she reached my staircase, she looked out the window to see shadows everywhere. She said that she didn't know how she made it to me and that it felt like it took forever. But once she grabbed a hold of me, she felt like she knew she could run. And that's when she took off for the basement, telling me to close my eyes as we passed the windows. All of those people that she'd brought to the house were bee farmers from the surrounding areas or local farm veterinarians, individuals who knew the area and the types of animals. None of them had ever seen anything like this before. Afraid to sound crazy, being in a new area and trying to start a new business, she refrained from investigating or asking about aliens at the time and decided to just move on. She felt like occupying the land and standing her ground was probably the best way to keep these visitors away. They had probably been visiting the abandoned area for years, she thought. So, yeah, my mom agrees with me that this was something not of this world. And we both remain mystified by the bright blue lights that filled our home that night. This happened when I was 16. My family had asked if I wanted to go to the park with them to watch the fireworks on the 4th of July. I really didn't want to go. Not that I had anything against fireworks, but I really wanted to go hang out with my friend Sean and drink. So I told them that I was going to go play video games. We figured that we would break into the abandoned school building in the area. Lots of teenagers would do that, and it was a well-known place for drinking and smoking pot where police would just leave you alone. I met up with Sean and he managed to score some pot too. I didn't smoke all that often, but every once in a while I would. He was a bit worried that being the 4th of July, a lot of people may have already been there. Whenever we'd gone there before, we never really came across other teenagers, just the remnants that they'd been there. Like normal, we snuck in an opening in the fence that surrounded the place. At that point, everything was still fine. There wasn't really anything to indicate that anybody else would be there either. We went behind the building and there was a broken door that we used to get in. Still, no indication that we weren't alone. We walked by several rooms and found one in the corner that we decided to smoke and start drinking in. It was really nice because we could still see the firework display and sort of hear them. We were probably in there for over an hour when Sean gave me a really weird look. "Did you hear that?" he asked me. I told him that I could hear fireworks, and he shook his head and told me that wasn't what he meant. "I think I heard something in there," as he pointed to the room next to us. I thought maybe he was just enjoying the pot a little bit too much, but he insisted that he heard something in the other room. When I suggested it was probably just other teenagers drinking, he decided that we should go look for them and see if they wanted to hang out. I really didn't care too much to do that, but I went ahead and went with him. We were walking down the hallway. I still hadn't heard anything, but Sean told me again that he heard noises. I began to think that maybe Sean was messing with me or trying to scare me or something. I kept bracing myself for him to do something. And then I heard it too. I may have even heard it before and just mistook it for something in the display. There had to be someone in one of the other rooms letting off fireworks. No big deal, really. Fireworks were illegal for just anyone to have. The displays were done by the city. But we came here for illegal drinking and illegal smoking, so it made sense that someone might come for illegal fireworks. So we found the room. There was an open doorway and a little bit of light coming from it. We figured that had to be the one. We decided to go through the doorway and introduce ourselves. Sean told me he'd offer them weed so they didn't think we were a narc or something. But when we looked in the doorway, we froze. There were 2 people in the room, but they were dressed as clowns. One sitting on the floor with a bunch of firecrackers in his hand, and the other one standing up, facing us. He had a huge sparkler in his hand, and you know how when someone has a sparkler, they write words? He wrote, "Hi." The other one quickly lit a rope of firecrackers and threw it at us. We turned and ran out, firecrackers echoing through the halls as we made our way to the exit. We could hear footsteps rapidly following us, but we didn't look back. When we were outside and running through the field, we looked back and we could see that no one was following us anymore, but we didn't stick around to see anything else. We left in a big hurry. I don't know if we were in danger. It was just a weird thing to see. So this happened to me a couple of nights ago. And for the record, I've never had anything strange happen at my house. Nothing paranormal, no weird dreams. This is a first. I was watching YouTube on my TV, and I have 2 doors leading to my backyard. A door with a screen on it and then a normal door. The screen door was closed, and the normal door was open just a bit. I was just watching TV, like I said, and the normal door opened a bit. It caught my attention from the corner of my eye, so I looked at it. I noticed there was no wind outside. And as I stared at the door, it slammed shut. I'm not kidding. No wind, no nothing. This door opened and shut itself. I went down to this abandoned property maybe 3 or 4 years ago on the 4th of July. It's since been torn down, I think 2013 or something, but the land remains just a large field. I got there around 9:30 p.m., and this was my first time ever going there for a ghost hunt. I decided to park by the gated pool area on the left, where people claim to hear screaming. Right when I opened my door to set foot on the ground, I heard and felt someone running up to me. I thought it might be a kid just because the only people that I had seen were some kids and adults, likely their parents, about a half a mile away, lighting off fireworks. But before I could even turn around, I heard an extremely loud screaming in my right ear. I jolted back, looking around. No one. I thought about hopping back in the car, shutting the door, and taking off, but this was technically what I came for. So I turned to open the back door, reached to grab some recording equipment, and again, an extremely loud scream in my right ear. I dropped my keys, and honestly, it felt like something hurled me into the back seat of my car. I jumped out, grabbed the keys, shut the door, got into the driver's seat, and took off. Fast. Way faster than I should have been speeding, but I could still hear the screaming on my way out. I was all the way to the highway when I heard the screaming again, so shocked I almost crashed, but this time it was just fireworks. I'd never had anything like this happen before, a human, possibly female, screaming in my ear. It took me a long time to go back to that place, and I never did go back alone. I went back a few more times with my cousin and his girlfriend, and we took probably around 100 pictures or so. Saw a lot of stuff that we thought could be orbs, mist, even a few things that looked, I don't know, alien-esque, greenish, red, almost humanoid. I sent the photos to a friend a few years ago who catalogs all the odd things that he or people he knows encounter. hopefully to publish one day. This is off Clark Road in Sarasota, Florida. It's very, very hard to find because the building is gone. It's off the same road as Big Healthplex Gym, all the way at the end past some old folks' facilities. I don't recommend going alone. This happened in the summer, 4th of July weekend, 2019. For privacy reasons, I won't disclose the name of the campsite, but I will say that it was in South Dakota. This happened the last night that my friends and I were there. We had all headed to our tents to pass out for the night, and everyone had seemed to have fallen asleep fine. But I couldn't. I kept hearing a flute. I tried to focus and listen to see where it was coming from. I narrowed down that it wasn't the campers to the left of us. They'd called it a night much earlier. Couldn't be from in front of us. Those people had left before the sun was down. Instead, I felt the flute sounded like it was traveling the field that was to the right of us. And then I heard a low singing voice that accompanied it. But I couldn't tell what they were saying. I really listened, and personally, I didn't know what language it was. But it wasn't English. I sort of looked around the tent. Everyone was asleep. But the flute didn't stop for about 5 minutes. And then, it was quiet. The next morning, I talked to everybody, but nobody heard the flute. I really don't know what it was, but I had a very eerie feeling. I don't know.
You are listening to The Darkest Hour, only on
Neo Retro FM, live from Olympia, Washington. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Modern music programming. NeoRetroFM.com.
We'll be right back.
I wanted to take a moment to talk about something my husband Ryan and I and our band Forget Me Not are doing this summer. We're teaming up with the Foundation for Edmond School District and their Nourishing Network program to support students and families in need. We kickstarted our campaign by releasing our latest single, Sweetest Thing. All summer long, we'll be donating 100% of music-generated proceeds to the foundation. You can help just by listening to our music. So, for all the details, be sure to follow us and visit our website, conductedbyforgetmenot.com. If you wish to donate or get involved with the foundation, please visit foundationesd.org. Help make No Student Hungry a reality.
And now, we continue with our stories.
So, my family's really big on barbecues, and this event took place a week before 4th of July, when I was 18. My cousin Celeste, 16 at the time, had a few of her friends over. We hung out throughout the day, swam, all of that good stuff. Eventually, toward the end of the barbecue, we all came up with the idea for a sleepover where we'd watch scary movies and stuff. At the time, because I was a boy and it kind of made me uncomfortable to be the oldest one there, everyone being a girl, I didn't want to go at first. Or stay. So I kind of sunk back and told myself I was going to go home. That didn't end up happening because the girls, total of 3, told me to stay and that it would be fun. Little did I know how much fun it really wouldn't be. Moving forward, everyone's saying goodnight, everyone on their phones. The girls talking about their drama in high school and me feeling like the odd man out, not being able to relate. I remember putting on Netflix because I love horror movies. Everyone started to tap out around 12:30, but I just kept playing scary movies on Netflix. We were all set up in the living room, my 2 cousins on the floor, my cousin Shannon on one couch, and I laying on the other couch across the room from her. 20 to 40 minutes later, they're all asleep, snoring like men. I begin to feel tired, and I remember my cousin waking me up, telling me to turn off the lights in the kitchen. The way the couches were set up, and because of the house's design, the living room and kitchen right next to each other, I had to walk around into the kitchen in a letter C formation in order to turn the light switch off. This is where shit hits the fan. As soon as I step foot into the kitchen, the lights begin to flicker on and off. And as I look up to see what was wrong, I hear feet shifting right in front of me. I remember the fear shooting straight down my spine as I came face to face with something. It was myself. Not walking, not moving in place, rushing, full force, arms out, in a power walk grabbing motion straight for me. I remember seeing myself completely in black. Black hoodie on, black pants, no shoes on, skin pale as a ghost. I panicked and took like 2 steps back, and as the lights kept blinking on and off, I could see my doppelganger. He had so much hate in his eyes, his face. The type of look you see when someone is enviously mad in movies. Anyways, I took 2 big steps back quickly, and the next thing I know, I'm falling onto the arm of the couch, raising my legs up to kick my clone. As I shut my eyes and I'm flinging my arms and kicking my legs, ready to hit something, I open my eyes and absolutely nothing. The lights are off, the TV is still on, illuminating the wide room, and Shannon is perched up on the arm of the couch, rubbing her face, asking me what I was doing. I was mortified, speechless. I could hear my heartbeat in my neck and ears, along with banging against my chest. I was paralyzed with fear, yet absolutely nothing was happening. I woke the other 2 up and I explained what had happened, and they were all too groggy to even seriously listen. I laid there all night with the TV on, with bright cartoons. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand how I only took 2 steps back, and then it's like I was teleported 8 to 9 steps back to the other arm of the couch. I didn't understand how no one believed me. I didn't understand seeing myself all in black. My cousin brought some stuff up later that was pretty alarming. She said that at night in her room, sometimes, she can feel someone standing there, waiting. And my other cousin told me that he's heard growling coming from my cousin's room while he was in the house alone. I have always been a bit scared of things like my reflection. I never stare into the mirror too long, and really only when I have to. And to this day, I can only look for a split couple of seconds before I have to rush on to whatever it is I'm doing. Someone once told me that it was a bad omen to see yourself. Well, I believe it. Because soon after that, an old-fashioned all-black car almost straight crashed into me one late night while walking home. That's a story for another time, but I know it ties into it somehow. We moved into a new house about a year ago, and strange things have been happening ever since. Noises come from rooms when nobody's in them. Footsteps coming from empty staircases, and something or someone keeps whispering in my ear, trying to talk to me. No one else in my house hears the whispers, but they hear everything else. The whispers started after moving in, and it keeps trying to get my attention, whoever's whispering. Whoever is whispering to me keeps saying the same things over and over. Hey, over here. And then my name. That's all it says. Just hey, over here, and it calls my name. I figured that it's best not to respond and to just pretend I don't hear it. So I have been. Other things that have happened is that it will sound like several people are having a conversation in a room, but that room's totally empty. As of recently, me and my siblings have noticed the silhouettes of a man standing at the end of the hallway when the lights are off. It will be pitch black, but we can still see the distinct figure of a man just standing there. Small bedside tables have started to fall over, with no one near them. And the other day, when I was home alone with my brother, I was walking to my room and I heard someone moving around in my sister's room. So I called out my brother's name. But he didn't respond, so I went in the room. When I went into my sister's room, no one was in there. That's when more noise came from the closet. So I took a couple of steps in to go look at it, and right when I was about to open the closet door, the actual bedroom door to the room slammed shut. I didn't open the closet door, and I got out of there immediately. Does anyone out there know why a ghost or whatever might be trying to talk to me? Should I talk to it? Why does it stand at the end of the hall? So this was a pretty freaky thing that happened to me a while back on the 4th of July. The people who lived in my neighborhood tend to go all out during this time of the year, for days letting off fireworks. But on the 4th, everyone brings out the big ones and they let them off all night long. I was home alone. My parents had gone to visit relatives for the 4th, and I'd stayed home. Being a teenager, it was always great when you got to have the house to yourself for a while. I didn't have any parties or anything like that. I just took the few days to watch TV and eat a lot of junk food. On this 4th, it was a bit louder than usual. The fireworks had started early in the day. I couldn't tell exactly what they were, but I knew that they were very loud and very big. When it gets to be about nighttime, most of the people in the neighborhood go out to their front porch and either set off their own fireworks or just watch them. I really didn't care too much to do that, though, so I decided to stay inside, hang out in the living room, and read a little bit. An hour into nightfall, it was pretty loud. The fireworks were still constant. I couldn't really watch TV, and it was making it hard to read, so as I was sitting there, deciding what to do next, I suddenly heard a loud noise that definitely was not a firework. It actually sounded like glass breaking, coming from the basement. I immediately looked up from my book, and the first thought was that someone was setting off fireworks close to the house, and that something had hit the window and broken it. We had one of those basements that was not really underground on one side, because it was sitting on a hill. Worried that the house might catch on fire, I got up and I grabbed our fire extinguisher. I ran over to the basement door. And during all of this, the fireworks were going off, so of course, it was a bit nerve-wracking. I ran down the stairs to our fully furnished basement, and I didn't see a fire. I flipped on the light and almost fell on my ass when I saw someone standing there. A man. There was a broken window, and this man was hunched over my dad's bar. He was grabbing bottles of liquor and putting them in a bag. He, of course, noticed when I turned the lights on. Turning around, he saw me, and at first he did nothing. He was a really big, scary dude, and I didn't know exactly what to do. He didn't have that problem, though. He came towards me, brandishing one of the bottles. Fortunately, even though I was hesitant because he was much bigger than me, I remembered I had the fire extinguisher. Acting through what seemed like impulse, I pulled the lever and sprayed the guy with the hose. It stopped him and nearly knocked the large man off his feet. What was important was that it gave me time to run up the stairs, close the basement door, and lock it. I called the police right away, telling them that someone had broken in. They came, but the guy was long gone by that point. He had stolen several bottles of alcohol, but that was it. The police filed a report and never did catch the guy. Thankfully, he never came back here either. In Navajo legend, a skinwalker is a medicine man who has gone to the dark side and is able to shapeshift into animals and other people. By night, they transform and inflict pain, suffering. I believe my family encountered one on an eerie, deserted highway through Navajo country. All my life, I've seen things, heard things, felt them. Born into a family of sensitive, this was rather normal. In my family, you were considered odd if you didn't experience abnormal things. We never talked much about our experiences or our feelings about them. We just accepted them as normal, which in fact, they were to us. But nothing could have prepared my family for what we encountered on a dark, desolate road in Arizona about 20 years ago, in a mysterious and traumatizing event that haunts us to this day. Our family had moved from Wyoming to Flagstaff, Arizona in 1978, shortly after my high school graduation. Sometime between 1982 and 1983, 20-year-old me, my father, mother, and younger brother took a road trip back to Wyoming in the family pickup truck. The trip was a vacation to visit friends in and around our old hometown. The only member of the family that wasn't present was my older brother, who was in the Army and stationed in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. The course along Route 163 took us through the Navajo Indian Reservation and through the town of Kayenta, just south of the Utah border, and the magnificent Monument Valley Navajo Tribal Park. Anyone who has lived in Arizona for any length of time knows that the Indian Reservation can be a beautiful, if harsh, place for non-natives. A lot of strange things happen out there. Even my father's friend, a Navajo, warned us of traveling through the reservation, especially at night. Along with the warning, however, he also blessed our family. And so, we were on our way. The trip to Wyoming was uneventful, but the trip back to Arizona, along the same route, more than justified the warning from my father's friend. It still gives me goosebumps to this day, and I have major anxiety attacks when I have to go travel through the North Country at night. I avoid it at all costs. It was a warm summer night, about 10 p.m. We were heading south on the 163, about 20 or 30 miles from the town of Kayenta. It was a moonless night on this lonely stretch of road, so pitch black that we could only see a few feet beyond the headlights. So the dark, closing our eyes, actually brought relief from the unfathomable black outside. We had been driving for hours, and my father was at the wheel, and the rest of us having settled into quietness quite a bit ago. Me and my father sandwiched my mother in the truck's cab, while my little brother enjoyed the night air in the back of the pickup. Suddenly, my father broke the silence. "We have company," he said. My mother and I turned around and looked out the back slider. Sure enough, a pair of headlights appeared over the crest of a hill, and then disappeared as the car went down, and then reappeared. I looked at my dad and said, "It's nice to have company on this stretch of road. If something happened to our car or theirs, at least we wouldn't be alone. It's so dark out here." Thunder began to rumble the vast, clouded sky. My parents decided that my brother should come into the cab before he got soaking wet from any rain that may fall. So I opened the slider window and let my brother crawl in. He squeezed between me and my mother, and when I turned to close the window, I again noticed the headlights from the following car. "They're still behind us," my father said. "They must be going to either Flagstaff or Phoenix. We'll probably meet them in Kayenta when we fuel up." I watched as the car's headlights crested another hill and began its descent, until it disappeared. I watched for them to reappear, but they never did. I asked my father, "Shouldn't their car have crested the other hill again, if they're going to either of those places that you talked about? Where did they go?" "Maybe they slowed down," he suggested. "Or pulled over," he finished. That was possible, but it just didn't make sense. Why the hell would a driver slow down, or worse yet, stop at the bottom of a hill in the middle of the night with nothing around for miles and miles? I asked my father. You'd think they'd want to keep sight of the car in front of them in case anything happened, you know? People do weird stuff when they're driving, my father replied. So I kept watching, turning every few minutes to check for the headlights, but they never did reappear. When I turned to look one last time, I noticed that our pickup was slowing down. I turned back to look out the windshield, and I saw that we were rounding a sharp bend on the road. And my father had slowed the truck to about 55 miles an hour, and from that moment, time itself seemed to slow down for me. The atmosphere changed somehow, taking on an otherworldly quality. I turned my head to look out the passenger window when my mother screamed and my father cried out, "Jesus Christ, what the hell is that?" I didn't know what was happening, but one hand instinctively reached over and held down the button to lock the doors, and the other tightly grabbed the door handle. I braced my back against my tiny brother and held firmly onto the door. Still not quite sure why. My brother was now yelling, "What is it? What is it?" My father immediately flipped on the interior cab light, and I could see that he was petrified. I have never, ever seen my father scared in my whole life. Not when he came home from his tours in the Vietnam, not when he came home from special assignments, and even when someone tried to firebomb our house. My father was as white as a ghost. I could see the hair on the back of his neck standing straight out like a cat's. And so was the hair on his arms. Goosebumps covering his skin. Panic was filling the small cab of the truck. My mother was so frightened that she began shouting in her native Japanese in a high, squeaky voice as she frantically wrung her hands. My little brother kept saying, "Oh my God," as our pickup sped around the bend of the road. I could see that the shoulder dropped off into a deep ditch. My father slammed on the brakes to prevent the truck from swerving into the ditch, and as the pickup was slowing to a stop, something leaped out of the ditch at the side of the truck. And now I could clearly see what had started the panic. It was black and hairy, and it was eye level with all of us in the cab now. Yet despite its monstrous appearance, whatever this thing was, it was wearing a man's clothes. It had on a white and blue checkered shirt, long pants, jeans, I think. Its arms were raised over its head, almost touching the top of the cab. The creature remained there for a few seconds, looking into the pickup. And then the pickup was past it. My father had taken off. I couldn't believe what I had just seen. It looked like a hairy man or a hairy animal in man's clothing. But it didn't look like an ape or anything like that. Its eyes were yellow, its mouth open. Although time seemed frozen and distorted in this moment of frantic horror, the whole ordeal was actually only a few minutes. The headlights, my brother coming into the cab, the thing. By the time we reached Cantha for gas, we had finally calmed down. My father and I climbed out of the pickup to look at the side of the truck to see if the creature had done any damage. We were surprised to see that the dust on the side of the truck was undisturbed. And so was the dust on the hood and the roof. In fact, we found nothing out of the ordinary. No blood, no hair, nothing. We stretched our legs and rested in Cantha for about 20 minutes. The car that had been following us never did show up. It's as if the car just vanished. We drove home to Flagstaff with the cab light on and the doors securely locked. I wish I could say that was the end of the story, but it's not. A few nights later, around 11, my brother and I were awakened by the sounds of drumming. We looked out my brother's bedroom window into the backyard, which was surrounded by a fence. At first, we saw nothing but the forest beyond the fence. Then the drumming grew louder, and 3 or 4 men appeared behind the wooden fence. It looked like they were trying to climb the fence, but couldn't quite manage to bring their legs high enough to swing them over. Unable to get into the yard, the men began to chant. We were so scared and slept the rest of the night in my room, eventually falling asleep. Sometime later, our family sought out the help of my father's Navajo friend, hoping that they could offer an explanation for these strange incidents. We were told that it was a skinwalker that tried to attack our family, the creature of Navajo legend that can shapeshift into animals. That a skinwalker attacked our family was quite unusual, my father's friend said, as it had been a long time since they'd heard of any activity about skinwalkers, and that they normally don't bother non-natives. We took our father's friend back to the fence where we had seen the strange men trying to climb in. He considered the scene for a moment and revealed that 3 or 4 skinwalkers had visited the house. He said that they wanted our family, but could not gain access because something was protecting us. Why? I asked. Why would the skinwalkers want our family? Your family has a lot of power, my father's friend said, and they want it. Again, he said that skinwalkers don't usually bother non-natives, but she believed that they wanted our family enough to expose themselves. Later that day, he blessed the perimeter of our property, our house, our cars, and our family. We haven't been bothered by skinwalkers since then. Then again, I haven't been back to Kayenta, and I don't drive through that area. When I do travel at night, I'm never alone. I carry protective amulets, and I carry weapons. I was at home, alone, making dinner. My boyfriend wasn't home from work yet. We were gonna go watch the fireworks at the park and eat first. All of a sudden, I thought I heard him call me from the front door, just around the corner from where I was. I stopped and listened, thinking I was hearing things. A few seconds later, I heard him call my name again, and then again, more urgently and louder. Without even thinking, I asked, "What's the matter?" and looked around the corner. No one there. I never did hear a door or footsteps. And about 10 minutes later, I saw my boyfriend's car pull up, and he walked in for the first time. I have no idea what was calling my name, but either way, I asked my boyfriend if he could just stay in and not go watch the fireworks. Okay, so this happened on the 4th of July when I was about 8 or 9. My family was living in Tacoma at the time on the 9th floor of an apartment building. It wasn't fancy by any means, but this building had an awesome view of the city, especially on the 4th. We had just finished watching the fireworks, and it was pretty late. My little brother, who was 1 or 2 at the time, was already asleep, and I remember my mom and dad let me stay up a little bit late to watch some TV with them. But I was put to bed so they could watch a movie that I wasn't allowed to watch. My brother and I had bunk beds, and of course I got the top bunk because I was older. I climbed up to bed, my parents tucked me in, and as I was laying there, listening to the fireworks outside, the TV from the living room, I realized that I didn't want to go to sleep. So I kept sneaking into the living room to see what my parents were watching, and go back to the hallway, just listen to the TV. For some reason, I just wouldn't stay in my bed. I remember my parents dragging me back to my room reluctantly, maybe more than once. But finally, I was laying there in bed, giving up hope of staying up with my parents, about to fall asleep, when I heard something. What I heard wasn't fireworks or my parents. It wasn't the TV. It was small footsteps making a skittering noise, like they were moving fast and on their toes. And they were coming from inside the bedroom. I was hoping maybe it was my brother moving his feet around, having a nightmare, kicking the sheets. But I leaned over, and I could see he wasn't moving. It wasn't that. And when I realized that something was making this sound, I froze, just listening to it. It sounded like it was moving against or up the wall, and then it stopped for a brief moment. I saw a shadow to accompany the sound, and just as suddenly, it started skittering again. But this time, I heard it move onto the wood of the long dresser. You could hear the difference as its feet clattered on the wood on the wall. The dresser was about 3 feet from the ground, so I was still higher than whatever I was hearing and seeing. The shadow seemed to come and go, the sound being constant. Now I'm listening very intensely to it. I stopped looking in the direction I was hearing it, and I just closed my eyes. I could hear it move all across all the surfaces of the room. Next to our bed is a small table against the wall with a TV on it. And I heard it move against the TV screen, skittering across the glass. I didn't mean to, but I gasped. And I heard it freeze, as if it was now aware of me, awake. I just wanted to get out of this room. As I started to slowly get up, the feet in the shadow, they all started to move again, running against the glass, against the wood of the dresser, descending down the drawers of the dresser, hitting the knobs on the way down. And then it ran in the direction of the bunk beds, hitting them. How do I know? The bed shook. It was as if it went to rush too fast and ran into the bottom bunk. Because I felt it and I heard it slip. Immediately, I went to the other side of the bed, where the door to the bedroom was. And as I got to the second step of the ladder, I heard something begin to skitter up. And out of sheer panic, I let go, falling and landing on my side, out of the bedroom, crying. My parents dismissed it, and were now furious that I was saying that there was something in my room as an excuse to stay out with them. And when I went back to my room, nothing was disturbed. Everything was untouched. No footprints, nothing. Nope, I wasn't buying it. I know what I heard, what I saw. Well, I know what I heard, I don't know what I saw. So finally, they decided to give in and give up on finishing their movie and just go to bed with me. I'll likely never have an answer to what this thing was, but I'm glad I never saw it again. Well, friends, it's time for me to say goodnight. But be sure to join me every Friday night and Saturday for the encore at 11 p.m. only on neoretrofm.com. Do you have stories like these? I would love to hear them. Send them to me at amandajanefmn@gmail.com. I'll leave you on a sweet note. Here's Forget Me Not's latest single, Sweetest Thing. Stay spooky.
Can I just say that I misled? You are the sweetest thing, and I believe that I was meant to be with you. I do with you, I do. I misled. You are the sweetest thing, and I believe that I was meant to be with you. reason why I lie awake at night, it's been that way for days. Mr. Sandman can skip my place, I'm here to stay. Cause no need for sleep when you're right next to me. But if you choose to go, I'll be dreaming, dreaming of you. Dreaming of you. Dreaming, dreaming, yeah. Dreaming, dreaming of home. Dreaming of you. Yeah. Can I just say that honestly, you are the sweetest thing, and I believe that I was meant to be with you. I do with you. I do. Honestly, you are the sweetest thing, and I believe that I was meant to be with you. This time, ever since I saw you, it feels like I've been out of my mind. Like I've been astro projecting, sit beside myself and I'm waiting just to feel our connection, feel this connection to you. I was lost in the dark, levitating through the atmosphere. I was lost in the dark, levitating. Lost in the dark, levitating through the atmosphere. Oh, I was lost in the dark, levitating, and you found me there. I was lost in the dark, levitating through the atmosphere. I was lost in the dark, levitating, and you found me there. Dreaming of you. Dreaming, dreaming, yeah. Dreaming, dreaming of you. Yeah, yeah. Dreaming of you. Can I just say that honestly, you are the sweetest thing, and I believe that I was meant to be with you. I do with you. I do. Honestly, you are the sweetest thing, and I believe that I was meant to be with you. I do with you. I do. You are the sweetest thing, and I believe that I was meant to be with you. I do with you. I do. I do.
If you go down in the woods today, if you go down in the woods today.
This will conclude tonight's broadcast of The Darkest Hour. From all of us here at the studio, we thank you for sharing your evening with us.